Greetings and welcome back to another episode of the RAD podcast. Happy Monday. And just want to say thank you for everyone for being here today. We're excited about this episode, especially me, but really looking forward to it. I am one half of this awesome team. My name is Larry Jefferson, straight out of Dallas, Texas, and I am glad to be here.
Yeah, it's your boy Dantrayl Smith representing the M-Town, Memphis 10. Super glad to be here. Want to let you know that this episode is brought to you by Buy Me Too. Every day is a new canvas, so try something new. Shop where creativity and unique apparel inspires you to smile. Website is www.buyme2style.com. Once again, that's www.buyme2style.com.
Man, how you feeling this Monday?
Man, bro, you know what? It has been a long day, man. I've been in meetings since 9 o'clock this morning. Actually, since 8:30, man. I've been in meetings back to back to back and with no break. Like I literally was sitting in the cafeteria area and somebody came up to me and was like, started asking me questions like, man, don't you see I'm eating? Like I'm eating. I got the fork in my hand and I was like, okay, this is about to
Man,
be a Monday. About to be a Monday, man.
hey, think about it if you was in your office and that happened. Like I sit in I don't even take lunch. I can't tell you the last time. Like I think I took one like a week or so ago. But other than that, I don't take lunch. I'm sitting there with my salad, my salmon. I'm happy. I'm like, okay, I'm gonna get a few seconds break. They walked in and said, "You busy?" And I was like, a little bit.
Right?
Oh, well, here is such a I'm like,
Yeah.
it's right here.
It's the audacity for me.
I don't get it, man. I don't get it. But nevertheless, we have a great panelist for you all today, and we'll allow them to introduce themselves. MJ, you want to start us off?
Yes, hello. My name is MJ Gonzalez Delgado. I'm representing Dallas, Texas, of course, but I live
That
in Tarrant
detail.
County. 214. So, yes, I'm a strong advocate for the LGBTQIA plus and very strong with women's rights as well. I also believe in equality for all, and I'm just happy to be here.
Glad to have you. Dr. Wade, you want to go?
Absolutely. I'm fine with that. My name is Dr. Ashley Wade. I am a pharmacist. But let me jump back. So I'm from East Texas. I'm gotta represent East Texas,
Which
Longview,
part?
Marshall. Yeah, Longview, Marshall, all the East Texas areas, but I do currently live in Dallas. So again, I'm a practicing pharmacist. I absolutely love drug therapy and talking to patients and people about medications and their health. I'm also an author of a holistic journal. And I also am a person who's an advocate for social justice and social issues, especially regarding bail reform and issues with the jail, especially in Dallas County. Happy to be here. Thank you guys for inviting me.
We're happy to have you here. Last but not least, Dr. Shirley.
All right. Good evening, everybody. Dr. Greg Shirley, he, him, his pronouns. Also representing Oak Cliff. That's my hood. But right now I'm in Las Colinas.
Moved on up.
Because I love the suburbs and I got to be by a Whole Foods and a vitamin shop.
You got Ann's Health Store. What you mean? It's right in the center of Oak Cliff.
I do have Ann's Health Store. I do, but back in the day when I lived in Oak Cliff, I didn't have Ann's Health Food Store money. So
right.
that I got it, I guess I'm driving to Arlington because they did put a store out at Arlington.
They did.
15-year veteran of higher education, recently transitioned out a year ago into educational technology. So I still have my toe in the water, somewhat working specifically with historically Black colleges and universities to provide communication solutions to their students to help combat summer melt. I know for my higher ed heads here, you all know what summer melt is, particularly if you are in admissions. I am also a strong advocate as the other panelists have said about social justice, whether it's women's rights, LGBTQ rights. I am a member of the LGBTQIA plus community, or as we like to call it internally, the Rainbow Mafia.
There you
So
go.
if there is a gay agenda, it's to bring back bottomless brunch. So that's a hill I will die on. Bottomless mimosas. That's the agenda. So really happy to be here. Really happy to discuss the topic tonight, particularly because in my former life in higher education, I worked primarily in career centers as a career consultant, also in employer relations. So topics that center around equality and belongingness, particularly in the workplace, are very near and dear to my heart.
Man, once again, thank y'all for coming on the show. As you all know, our listeners, this particular episode, we're focusing on piercing, tattoos, hairstyles, etc. Because we know that the Crown Act, which was introduced in 2019 in states, was passed into law, prohibits race-based discrimination against natural hair in the workplace and in public schools. However, some places are still creating hostile environments for people to express their authentic self. And so, without further ado, Larry, you want to go ahead and throw out the first question?
Will. So my question is, can an employer require an employee to cover his or her tattoos, piercings, or the way an employee wears their hair?
So I really will say that it's going to be, and this is me putting my old school career services hat on, what I would always articulate and tell to my students, and I'm so glad that you brought this up, Larry, because I had this situation where I had a student and he came in and he said that he wanted to be a police officer. He wanted to go in law enforcement. However, he had locks. And so I had to have that serious conversation with him where I had to express to him, if you want to be a police officer, particularly in the South, you will have a challenging time. I'm not saying it's impossible, but it'll be a very challenging time for you to find a position in law enforcement in Texas as a person of color with locks. And we can look at it from you being a man with long hair. We can look at it as you being a man with locks. Either way. And I can remember he had a very hard time digesting that. And I honestly had a very hard time, having to articulate that to him. And so we don't see it as often now because there have been, policies where it's a very case by case basis, depending on the organization, but also the industry, where those have become relaxed. For those of us who are in higher education, I can remember when I first started out in 2008, you dare not have a visible tattoo. Right. You dare not have a piercing, particularly as a man. Facial piercings, no. And I can remember specifically starting my journey in career services. And, I had a very well-intentioned white supervisor. When I started growing my hair, I didn't even have locks. I just had curls. And then I started growing my beard. And she looked at me and she said, well, Greg, are you going to shave? Because you're working in a career center and you need to emulate what the employers are looking for in new hires, particularly being at a university in Northeast Texas. And so all of these nuances came into play as being a man of color, with hair, beards. Now, of course, once again, that was back in 2009 to 2014. We're in 2022 now. And now I think there's been such an increase in the number of individuals who are expressing themselves in different ways coming into the workplace with beards and with long hair and piercings. I paint my nails. And as a man, Black man who has fingernail polish, I oftentimes get the question, well, why do you do that? And so you can insert anything here, nail polish, hair, beard, facial piercing. And what I express to individuals is it's an accoutrement. It's an accessory. It's a way of expression. And so does that limit my ability to do my job? No, in many cases, I think it makes it much more accepting and approachable for those people who are doing the same thing to approach me and see that I'm in a position of influence. So I say all that to summarize, because I definitely want to make sure that I give everybody else time to speak, because, you know, as Dr. Dantrayl Smith knows, I could talk all day about this. I could wax away.
Sure can. That's my dude, though.
You got me going now. Look at the industry that you want to go into and identify what can be seen as acceptable, or what you can have a conversation on. If you're going into a more conservative arena, such as accounting, banking, financial services, law, in some cases, still law enforcement, then the policies may be a little bit more stringent compared to, you know, human services, or once again, educational technology.
Um, my first career, I was a hairstylist for many years. So I did get to see and experience a lot of changes throughout times where some of my clients would come in, they would have locks, they would have purple hair, blue hair, they would have mohawk, flowhawk, and they were going into a new job, career. So many times they would come in and say, hey, MJ, I need to clean up. I need you to clean my hair up. And I'm getting a new job, and, you know, I got to be presentable. Well, he or she already looked presentable. It's just the fact that he was perceiving, okay, this is what I have to look like. Didn't even bother to ask, was it accepted on how he looked? That's his individuality. So
Wow.
I came across that many times being a hairstylist, and even with people with tattoos, because I'm tatted up, I have piercings, and I've had all the hair colors and everything, but I never really let that deter me from doing anything I wanted. However, I just sometimes see that now, when I was a hairstylist back then to now, it's more accepting. It's more accepting in the workplace. At a hospital, I saw a male nurse covered in tattoos and piercings, and that did not hinder his work. He did an amazing job. So I just believe that with time, things are changing, the culture is changing, and it's more accepting. And so and I'm glad for that.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll piggyback and say that I feel like people are seeing that it doesn't inhibit your productivity, especially, you know, I'm in the healthcare field, and that's another one of those could be possibly strict arenas of professionalism. And people throw that word around a lot, you know, especially nowadays. Well, who's professional, who's unprofessional, how does it look, how does it look? But part of it is just what I did is just jump in there. I love my septum piercing and I wear it. And it was so funny when I transitioned jobs, you know, we were under COVID, so I had my mask on. And it was so interesting when I first put my mask down and my boss saw it. I'm sure he was just like, oh, you know, I wouldn't expect to see that.
Right.
But at the same time, he digested it and we went on about our business. You know what I'm saying? So I think if you put it out there, then you give that person a chance to say whatever, you know, to make their own judgment. And so it's better to just just present it and let people either accept you and then deal with, you know, whatever the, you know, outcomes are, but still show it and give it and serve it, and then, you know, let people handle it and accept it how they will.
Yeah. And I think we should also look at one, and we've all said this, and I love it. The culture is changing because the culture is literally changing. There's more diversity and inclusion
Right.
in the people who are doing these jobs.
Mm-hmm.
And we are no longer centering professionalism in terms of the proximity to whiteness. So when someone tells me, oh, well, it needs to be professional, are you defining professionalism as whiteness?
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And they're not ready to always have that conversation. And I'm like, well, let's have this conversation, because if I'm in a room of 20 people and 16 of them all look in a homogenous way, well, of course you're going to see that as professionalism, because you're not expanding the inclusion of what professional is. I mean, it's not like I'm coming in here with 3 heads of a hydra with body odor. No, I got locks. They're clean, they're presentable, they're put together. And I think, much as what you were saying, Dr. Wade, when you go in and you give them no reason to see anything else other than, oh, well, okay, well, your hair is this color, you have this piercing, but your reports are on time, you are able to articulate yourself professionally and effectively. And of course, when we look at the proximity of having to be people of color and being resilient, which I cannot stand, I don't like the resiliency thing, but that's a different conversation for a different day. And having to do like Papa Pope said on Scandal, working twice as hard to have half of what they have. Well, we've done that. And so now you can't tell me that just because my hair grows up instead of down or out instead of down, because I defy gravity, that I can't do this job.
And I think people are starting to be more accepting of tattoos just because of how people, because a lot of people have them. And also every tattoo tells a story. So you're able to engage with people. And I think that's important that a lot of people don't see that. There's a reason for our tattoos. So why not, instead of judging, ask about them, because they're on us permanently. And if we work together in the same place, get to know me. Don't judge me based on what I look like or what I have on my body. This is my temple and I chose to do what I wanted to do with it. So that's what it is.
So let me ask you all this. You all talked about how society's views of tattoos, piercings has kind of changed. What do you think has really brought about that change? Like, why have we transitioned from, in my opinion, a non-acceptable society when it came to that to maybe now, okay, you know what? I think MJ, she's okay, right? She's still doing her job the right way. Like, why has that changed? Where did that change come from?
I'll jump in. I think people are defining their own authenticity. And so when they show up in spaces, they're not conforming. And so it's beyond just the one person, the one outlier. It's the whole group or the whole section or the whole department is now coming into their authenticity in whatever way that is. And I think I'm not sure, but I think it came from a place of like, dang, we're going to have to fire the whole group. Or we would have to reprimand more than just one person. It would be 20
Right.
people or, and then also I think people are starting to become more open-minded on the presentation to their demographic, that their market. What do we want to say to our market? And do we want to show our market that we're accepting? Do we want to show our market? And so if that's the case, then we have to allow our employees that freedom to be free in who they are, and then let them attract the customers or patients or whatever from that perspective, and just be all around generally open-minded. So I think more of us are showing up again on our authentic self. And so what can you say to that?
Mhm. I mean, I would
Okay.
also say, I would say this in the organic way, but the organic way is a little rude and crass. So I'll just say, if anybody's ever heard the saying, Google is free, insert word. Now that we are seeing so many things, and it goes back to MJ, what you were talking about with piercings and tattoos, a lot of that is rooted in tribalism. A lot of that is
Yes.
rooted in, if we look at Wakanda Forever and you see piercings from the Talakan and you see piercings and tattoos from the Wakandans and things like that, those all came from somewhere. So I think that when we're starting to have more anthropological conversations about it, like I love Ancient Aliens. You see a lot of that on Ancient Aliens because I'm a nerd like that. You said, Dr. Wade, you got to cater to your demographic. So the youth, the revolution is passed on to the youth. The youth shall inherit the revolution. The youth are coming as their authentic selves, and the youth, particularly youth of color, spend more money in these spaces. So do
Mhm.
you want this money? Because we could be black or white, but we all love the color green, baby.
Right,
Listen,
right.
run it up. I'm chasing the bag. And so if I had to chase the bag, and that means that this man over here has a septum piercing, or, this woman here has gauges or whatever, I need to be able to cater to that demographic, whereas I'm going to lose out on money. So there's a capitalistic greed thing that's centered to it. But I mean, how we got to get there.
Right.
I believe that with, like, for example, with hair, of course, with African and Latino society, our hair is sacred. It's a symbol of our culture. It's a symbol of spiritual, and it tells a story of who we are, where we came from. And so I just feel a lot of times that in the US, we're so behind because in so many other cultures, it's accepted. Different types of hairstyles accepted, tattoos are accepted. The Maoris from Wales or New Zealand, they're covered in tattoos. And it's very accepting there. So I feel like we're just so behind with it. But I'm very thankful that we have a lot of older people that have brought this to the forefront for all of us to be able to express ourselves the way we're able to do it now. And there still needs a lot of work to be done, but we're still there. We're going.
And I'll say this one last thing, and then shut up. I think the pandemic really helped us realize there are so many other things we can be worried about.
Oh, yes.
But the way we were cooped up in the house. I literally will tell you the reason I started growing locks was because I went 6 months without a haircut. And my hair started free-forming. And I had already was like, okay, well, I'll go ahead and color my hair. Because surely I'm waking up every day, y'all. I'm like, well, surely the barbershop will open on this day. Okay, maybe this week. Maybe this month. No. Okay. Well, you know what? I will go ahead and just grow my hair. I colored it red. Then it started curling up. And then by the time the barber shops were starting to open up again, I had become so comfortable and accustomed to having a fade with curls on the top. And then one day, my twin brother, because I have a twin brother, he already started locking his hair like a year or so before I did. And I remember we were sitting on this very couch we're sitting on now. And I had one baby lock free forming like right back here. I was like, Zach, my hair's starting to lock up. He's like, well, do you want to cut your hair? No. Well, if you don't cut your hair, Greggy, your hair's going to lock up.
Right.
So you might as well go ahead and lock it up. And I was very hesitant because I said I didn't know what I would look like with locks. And now it'll be 2 years in January. I can't imagine not having locks because there's so many things and so many versatile things you can do with it. And like you said, MJ, our hair tells a story. And so I can't help it if some people, and this is not an attack on anybody, I can't help that you don't have a culture where your hair doesn't tell a story. It's just there. I don't know. From the outside looking in, you can't understand it. From the inside looking out, you can't explain it.
All that.
I'm definitely gonna show my tattoos, so it'll be all right. So what do y'all think is one of the biggest challenges or barriers for employees that choose to place, I guess, limits on employees not to express them true selves? What are the ramifications that can come out of that?
Right, good question.
I mean, I have an answer, but I don't want to be the first one to talk all the time. So, I don't want to take up too much space.
I mean, ultimately, you fall behind. I mean, just like MJ said, we're already behind in the times, and we're already behind in culture, and people are catching up. And again, do you want to be marketable or not? Do you want people to come visit your establishment or not? Because people will not. People like their dollars. People like their coin. And they're going to they're mostly mindful of where they take it and spend it. So if you want to be relatable to the people, then you have to let those limits subside. And a lot of times it's it's the personal problem because you don't understand it. Again, to everyone's point, just ask. And I think once people start becoming more open-minded, who are typically the suit and tie type or have that type of persona regarding professionalism, you won't learn. And so when you start asking those questions, why does your hair do that? Or how does your hair do that? Then we can teach you. That creates an opportunity, a teachable moment. So we can tell you about our history. We can tell you about our heritage. And then why would you not accept it? You know what I'm saying? With that bit of information behind it. So if you want to stay relevant to the people, no matter what industry it is, whether it's healthcare, fashion, whatever, then you have to be considerate of the ramifications of people pulling their coins.
Yep.
Dr. Wade, you pointed out some really good points there, because it takes me back to when I decided to leave the hair industry to go into higher education. And that's pretty much when my education journey started, to go back to school. So I was still caught up in that mindset of being a hairstylist, looking the part, playing the part. So when I decided to go full time and get a position here at a college, I had to look around, and truth be told, there's not really many Latinas in this community college that look like me. And the few that do work here, they have this professional stance about them. And I mean, I couldn't relate to that. And so I had to I started to wanting to change my views on how I looked. I started questioning myself, and I never really had to do that. So I had to take a really, really long time to sit there with myself and say, okay, why am I feeling this way? Why am I comparing myself to these other individuals? And then I said, because I'm a walking billboard of myself. So if I'm a walking billboard of myself, I need to represent who I am. And by representing who I am is keeping it real 100. So I'm going to show my tattoos. I'm going to wear my piercing. And if I decide to have blonde hair today, black hair tomorrow, so be it. Braids, whatever. But I'm still going to be 100%. So I'm a walking billboard of myself.
And I think that really helps, the fact that you work with students and they see that. And then
Yes.
that helps pour into them that you have that confidence to walk in that. Because, we're not old, but compared to them, we elders, I guess.
Yes.
So,
Yeah.
and
You older than me, bro.
you know what? That's a different conversation. We're going to talk offline about that. But they see us, like they look at us. Like young people will emulate what they see. And it's like, on one end, we say, do as I say and not as I do. But on another end, we do want them to challenge the status quo.
Right.
And so how can they feel really comfortable, particularly when you turn on the news and you see the detriments of challenging the status quo? They need to have individuals who have been here before to tell them, okay, well, this is all right. This is how you do. I remember I used to tell my students all the time, look, if y'all really want to cause ruckus because your voices are much louder than us as pro staff.
Oh, yeah.
If I were you, this is what I would do.
Right.
Or this is what I would say. Or I'm going to send you this email. I want you to clean it up and you send it off, because this is what you need to say. Maybe I leave some on the Xerox machine for a student to randomly find, and then they get irate and upset about it. Love it. And so, but I do think, like, much to what we've said, the ramifications are you lose that. And there's a case in point. I don't know if anybody's been listening to NPR today, but the Supreme Court is hearing a case of a Colorado graphic designer who is not willing to do a wedding design for a same-sex couple in Colorado because she feels like it violates her religious rights. And so for me, being a part of the Rainbow Mafia, I struggle with that. On one end, yes, you definitely want to have the conversations because you want to have that equality. My money is just as good as any heterosexual couple's money. But in another end, and I think what we're seeing now, like, go where your dollars matter, buy within your community. And then when they start seeing that you are taking your money away from them based upon their belief, you can have your belief.
Right.
You can have your belief. I don't believe you need to mix plaid with stripes. That's my business.
Right.
But if you want to do it,
I'm going to mix the plaid with stripes.
All day.
And so for me, I'd be like, you know what? If that's interfering with my coin and my currency, then I'm going to reconsider. Right. And so I think it takes for them to realize how detrimental it is to go against quote unquote woke culture, but I don't like to call it woke. I just like to call it we're enlightened now.
And then also, if you take a look at like Macy's, JCPenney's, those type of places where you can typically find your solid, as far as fashions, you can't find them. Malls are closing. Like, people are being more creative in their fashion, and that's where the dollars are going. So you have people don't even go to the mall anymore. You know what I'm saying? Unless they're shopping
Right.
for sneakers or something like that. But ultimately, to your point, the dollars are moving. And I think if people don't want to pay attention to that, they don't want to adapt, fine. But you're gonna have to, sweep up after you got to go from your your lease and your space, because people are growing out of that mindset.
What I loved about the pandemic, I started buying so many black owned like things, like my scrunchies are black owned based on West African prints. My clothes, 9 times out of 10, are from a vendor of color.
Right.
A lot of my money nowadays, because I don't like spending a lot of money on clothes, because I like to wear them until they're threadbare and then sew them up because I'm cheap. But the things that I have brought as of late are either black owned, women owned, minority owned, or something like that, because I see me, or I see a similarity in me in those brands. And if you can't format an outfit, y'all gonna end up the same way Tommy Hilfiger ended up when he said his clothes weren't designed for black people. Guess
Sure
what?
will.
You're gonna end up the same way Cristal ended up when Jay-Z was rapping about that. Go the way of the dinosaur, go the way of the dodo. It's fine by me.
So let me add, well, before I ask the question, man, let's go to the audience and see if the audience got any questions. Give an opportunity for our audience to ask our panelists some questions.
Don't be shy, y'all. It's a safe space.
No, I
I
hit
don't
him with
have a
my
question.
countdown.
I don't have a question, but when y'all finish, I sure do have a statement to make about the tatting up. And I just wanted to tell you just a brief story. I was in corporate America, whatever, for 37 years, and I saw the change. And I want to answer, I just elaborate on somebody said, I think Larry Jefferson said, but where did the change come from? Yes, we as a people that look like me, Black American woman that's almost 70, I saw the change, and it changed because in where I worked in corporate America, we decided we weren't going to take it anymore. We were tired. We were the baby boomers and we were tired. And so when they didn't like the locks and hair color, whatever, we challenged them. We said, either you're going to do this, you're going to make somebody that doesn't look like us cut their hair and tell them to stop wearing tattoos, are we going to file discrimination suits? And so what we did as a group of older women and men, we went crazy probably. I wore my hair blonde, red, everything that I could do to show them who I am as a person or who we were. But the other thing I noticed is they started accepting tattoos and everything when people that did not look like me started being tatted up. They were tatted up more than my people were. Oh, they started accepting it then. They had more piercings than you could count. They started changing then. That's when I noticed it. But that was just my statement. I couldn't wait to get that out. So
Appreciate that. Appreciate that.
okay, that's all I had to say.
Any other questions or comments from our audience? But Mama Jennifer, you actually bring up a good point. It transcends. You must have been reading my mind when I was talking about the next question, because I wanted to get the panelists to speak about, like, do you think that the change has kind of came from because we were, like Mama Jefferson, kind of understanding the laws, and so we're not going to take it anymore because now we really have educated ourselves on what it really means to be our authentic self, because it's not really jeopardizing our workflow, right? And so I wanted to ask the panelists, do you think that that is a piece? I know you all talked a little bit about, the kind of the world kind of changing in retrospect, but is it because we are learning, truly learning really who we are?
I think we're loving ourselves even more than we've ever loved ourselves. And I think the pandemic had a lot to do with that, because we had a lot of self-reflection, not being able to engage with people outside and having a lot of me time and alone time was a lot of reflection. So I think just knowing that we could accept ourselves in any format, then we're okay. And we're not going back no more. We're going to move forward. And you're going to have to accept me. If you don't like it, oh well, this is who I am. So I think this is what it is. It's just a lot of self-acceptance.
Mhm.
I definitely agree. And it wouldn't be right if I didn't refer to some books. So especially from our good brother Naeem Akbar, Know Thyself. So it's not just, our culture is being locked up just because we feel like it. So again, in the past, people may have approached us asking why, and we may not have known the solid answer. We may not have been able to justify it by, hey, this is our culture. But now we know, again, to the things that we've discussed, this is a part of who we are. This is, I
Facts.
mean, it's natural when it comes out this way. So how can you have a problem with that when it comes out naturally? So yeah, I do think we are learning more about ourselves. We are also reading, we're exploring, because again, our history was so disconnected from us. We're just now tapping back in within the last,
Mhm.
COVID or 5, 10, 15 years and backing up who we are with facts.
Mm.
So, y'all, people can play around all day long and they can try to discriminate. But baby, guess what? I'm going to HR because this is my culture. You see what I'm saying? And if you want to dismiss it and play around with HR, then cool. Now I have a case. I can go to employee relations, and I can really stand up for myself. Where before our ancestors, especially coming out of slavery, were a little bit passive because we wanted to be accepted. So we did fried and dyed our hair. We wanted it straight. We wanted to play the part professionally because we wanted to be accepted in certain spheres. But I think now we're feeling where you were saying that we don't have to do that.
Right.
And if you don't accept this, that's fine. Especially after COVID, we'll create our own business.
Mm-hmm.
Facts.
And we don't have to answer to nobody. And so at that point, then what? So I think I do contribute that to our enlightenment about our culture and ourselves. And absolutely.
And I think there's so much to be said, because Dr. Way, you're quoting books, and for me, I quote a TV show. If you've never seen any of the Making Black America or Making Latin America
Mm-hmm.
documentary series from Dr. Henry Louis Gates on PBS, I strongly encourage you all to look at those, because there was something that one of the commentators said. And he said, and it resonated with me so much. He said, particularly speaking about making Black America through the grapevine, America gave Black people a bounce check right after the Civil War, when they were saying they were going to make all these concessions. And I think now, particularly being people of color in general, we see that check has bounced and we are coming to collect what is due. You have used Black people to build this country. You are now using Latin Americans or our Hispanic brothers and sisters to build this country. Because when you look at construction, who's out there building the roads and building the
Right.
buildings 9 times out of 10? But are you giving them the same concessions that you give those who are not Black and brown? And so you can't keep taking and taking and taking and taking from us and expecting us to continue to try to assimilate and accommodate, which is why the midterm elections was so fascinating to me to see Black and brown people vote GOP.
Oh yeah, I know.
Yeah.
But it's like, I have a Hispanic friend and he was like, yeah, when you're young and Hispanic, you generally vote liberal. But when you get married, pro-life, pro-family, those are the things. And, MJ, you can talk way better on it than I can. So I'm not even going to try and, quote all of it. But it's very interesting that I have Hispanic friends who were like, growing up, their grandparents told them, don't speak Spanish. You're an American now. You're in America. This is what you need to do. Your Venezuelan and your Cubans coming from socialist regimes. And the GOP has basically said the Democratic Party is akin to socialism. So you need to vote GOP. Black people who are like, well, you know what? The economy is the most important thing for me. Never mind abortion rights, never mind civil rights, never mind police brutality. And so now, whether it's right, wrong, or indifferent, there are those of us who are looking for that bounce check to be cashed and validated. But then there are those of us who have, for lack of a better word, fed into what has been given to them and say, well, I'm more American than this. Even though when I wake up and I look in the mirror, I can't wash this off.
Right.
And people are constantly reminding me that I can't wash it off.
Right. All the time. Facts.
And nor do I want to wash it off.
Right.
Because baby, this seasoning right here, this all Tony Chachere's, baby, right here. Hilarious.
Well, we greatly appreciate y'all dropping y'all knowledge for us today and sharing all that y'all have shared. Dantrayl, what quote you got for us, man?
Man, hey, I got one more question though, bro. I'm sorry, man. I know we trying to get to the quote, man, but I got one more question for I want you to specifically address and talk to about like, your authentic self of who you are, right? Because I think one of the things we want our listeners to really walk away with is how do you get to that space where you three are to where I can fully express my authentic self and show up in the workplace with my hair long, my hair in locks, curl, I mean like tattoos, you know what I'm saying? Like how do you get to that particular place? Because that's one of the things that we want to make sure our listeners all walk away with some type of self-reflection.
Ladies first.
Well, I will say that, to anybody that's listening and they're curious about how to do it, I think you have to start paying attention to how you respond to things. Start paying attention to your own journey and, and allow yourself to change your perspective and allow yourself to grow into your authentic self. It's not something that you can just say in without any meaning or any like girth behind it, because we are in that realm of like love and light, you know what I'm saying? But people still be like nasty. So you have to own your growth and own your perception of self. I also think we need to like revisit toxic theology. I'm just gonna leave that right there.
Listen, listen.
And we also need to start journaling more. I love guided journals because they kind of make you start thinking outside of the box about random things. You know what I'm saying? Goals, mission statement. And so when you kind of tap that into the essence, right? And that's kind of what Dr. Akbar mentions in the books that he writes, because he's a psychologist. That's another thing. Tap into Black psychology or Latin psychology. We have scholars that have been studying this type of manipulation. So when you tap into it, you realize, hey, I don't have to conform. And so pay attention to your own journey of unlearning how to conform, because we learned for years how to conform. So unlearning that. And I'm just going to drop this shameless plug real quick. And so I wrote a book on how to do that. It's a short book. It's a 5-step process of how to do things like find your voice, how to deal with your past, because all of that adds and the math adds up to who you are now. So self-reflect. Do you like who you are? Let's start there. And if you
Right.
don't, start taking the necessary steps to open that door and allow your true self to be revealed.
For me, I think it would be just getting to know who you are, your as a person, your roots, your culture, digging deep into your past, knowing who your ancestors are. You would be surprised if you found out so many things about yourself, and you would understand your journey, because our ancestors paved the way for us. Their prayers are still protecting us. So
Mm.
get to know who you are and get to the root of all of your ancestors, and that's how you will be able to appreciate your walk and your journey. And so for me, I would just say express yourself and accept yourself, and find your voice.
For me, there are two definitive things that help me get to that point of self-acceptance. One, and I know this is not something for everyone or everyone's capable of doing, so I'm using I statements in this. I went to a predominantly white high school, so I went to a historically Black college. And so I knew for me that that was probably going to be, not even probably, it will be the last time where I was around everybody or majority of people who not even just Black, because we had, once again, we had Cubans and Brazilians and, so many brown people from the diaspora and everywhere else attending. We had two white people, and they had to fall in line. And I'm like, man, is this what it feels like all the time? Let me just soak this in. Wow. Is this how y'all feel all the time? So that was the first one. The second one, and this is going to tie in, Dr. Wade, to your toxic theology quote. I can remember in 2012, it was a couple of months before my mother passed away. And I can remember being in her bedroom. And it was me, my twin brother, who's also a part of the Rainbow Mafia, and her. And she said, I totally accept y'all in y'all lifestyle. I just didn't want you to have it harder in life being Black men, but then being Black men and queer. And then she said, I don't give a damn what your daddy think. I accept you. And so then about a month later, she transitioned. And I take that with me all the time, to where I'm like, if my mama was okay with me,
Right.
forget what the rest of y'all say. And so like 2 weeks ago, I went and got a tarot card reading. And the tarot reader sensed my mother's energy. She's like, there's a very dominant energy in here. And I'm seeing the color blue in the sky. My mother's favorite color was blue. She loved to travel, and she a Virgo. So she was like, yeah, she's here right now, but you need to know she's never left.
Wow.
And so hearing that reaffirmation for me was like, you know what? I'm doing things right. My mother didn't get to see my brother and I walk across the stage to get our doctorate degrees. We get married. She's not going to be there. We go through these things, and it's been, 10 years since she's been gone. And so much has happened. And so I can't be concerned about what people don't like about me,
Right.
because they're, not even factors in my day-to-day. And so having those things has really helped me be like, you know what, it's going to be okay. I could bay at the moon and be totally fine. Also, I will hold it down for us ball brothers like you two in the Crown Act. I'm an ally. I'm an ally.
All right, man. So the quote I got for us is tattooing, when understood in its entirety, must be seen as a religious act. The human being brings forth images from the center of the self and communicates them to the world. Fantasy is embodied in reality, and the person is made whole. Spider Web.
Like I said last week, I'm gonna get more.
Yeah, man. No, I appreciate it, man. I appreciate y'all coming on the show. It means the world to me. Before we go, y'all want to give a special way that people can contact you? I know all y'all on Instagram. I follow all you all, and all the books and things you all are prophetically saying on Instagram. So y'all want to put your information out there, please do.
Just follow me on LinkedIn, Greg Shirley. I'm there. Instagram is more for the ratchet stuff. So if you in the ratchet, you pass that trail. I do some ratchet stuff.
Definitely, you can follow me on Instagram, Read with Dr. Wade. I have a link tree attached there so you can see the things I have going on. You can purchase a copy of my book there, but Read with Dr. Wade, and then all my accolades are attached to my link tree.
My Instagram is Marcy Jen Go. I just put up a lot of political stuff, love stuff, emotional stuff, encouraging stuff. So you'll know when I'm in a good mood or a bad mood by what I post. And what I'm
she
going
ain't lying
through.
about that though.
If you want to see some workout stuff, feel free to follow me on Instagram. That's all I post nowadays. I'm in the gym. Dr. G. Cheryl. JR.
So, well, again, we appreciate y'all being here. Fun conversation. Thank you, audience, for tuning in and being just always here to listen. And we try our best to make sure that we bring in the greatest people to drop this knowledge for y'all. So thank y'all again for being here, supporting us. And thank you again, panelists, for joining us today. Have a superb Monday. I know I'm in a good mood because the Lakers been winning lately. So hey.
Oh, I forgot, man. A shameless plug. Don't forget to tune in next week. We got a remix episode coming your way. We're gonna be talking about sex. I told you we're gonna bring this episode back. Yeah, so the people that we got, man, you just do not want to miss it. So we already got confirmation. We got their cell phone numbers.
Yeah,
they're gonna be in the
We
building.
gotta have a phone
Yeah.
number this time.
Yeah, they're gonna be in the building. So please, man, tell all your friends. Yeah, we're gonna get you ready for the holiday. So just tune in next week.
Got it on my calendar.
I'm gonna come with questions.
Hey, bring them.
Testimonials too.
All right, y'all. Y'all have a good Monday.